Demos una gran bienvenida a la Kali Uchis.
Kali Uchis.
Kali Uchis. And the Grammy goes to Kali Uchis. Telepatía streamed over 800 million times.
How does a chica colombiana americana
Thank you for having us. My name is Kali Uchis.
go from making GarageBand mixtapes on SoundCloud to, well, this?
She was never striving for fame, but claims to have always made music out of genuine passion. She tells Vulture, "It's the ultimate luxury to be able to wake up and do what makes you happy. That's the main reason I chose to do this with my life. I'm not an artist because I want to be famous or super rich." Kali's main drive has always been to make music and make art that she loves while also being able to provide herself. She said in a couple of interviews that she always knew that art was what she wanted to do in her life. And all it took was a single moment of courage for her as a teenager to upload her music online in 2012 and get noticed just like that. Today at age 29, she's become one of the most relevant artists in the music industry. With her fourth studio album, Orquídeas, having come out earlier this year in January, that was her highest charting album yet. And she's currently one of the top 100 most listened to artists on Spotify with over 35 million monthly listeners. These are all huge feats, but having started her music career in her teens, she's not new to this industry at all. Now, Kali Uchis' rise to stardom is a story of Latin excellence, bilingual representation, and pure authenticity. Her story is one of resilience as labels constantly try to manipulate her work into something that it wasn't. By studying her rise to stardom, we can see the new role that social media has played in bringing Rise to a star, understand the industry power that record labels still hold over the music industry nonetheless, and we can see how Kali became one of the trailblazers for bilingual music into mainstream media and specifically US media. Kali Uchis was born Carly Marina Loaiza. She was born in 1994 in Alexandria, Virginia, to Colombian parents from Pereira. She started the same way many other artists do, which was just making music in her bedroom on GarageBand. She often skipped class because she never felt like that traditional school route was really meant for her. She was first discovered when she released a mixtape that she made in just under 48 hours, and it's called Drunken Babble. She released it on SoundCloud in 2012 when she was 17. It was her creative outlet. She would tell Billboard that she would skip all her classes just to be making my songs. Stuff like that made me feel good. And BBC tells us that she was noticed by Snoop Dogg, Tyler the Creator, and Gorillaz. So already pretty established people in the industry. As a woman, not to mention as a Latina woman from Colombia, there are already a lot of barriers that come into being in the music industry. Not directly, of course, but indirectly. For her, these barriers were breaking down through her use of online platforms to be able to get her work out there and get noticed. She didn't need to market her first mixtape because the work spoke for itself. She credits word of mouth for that just spreading to people like Snoop Dogg, because that's no easy feat. She didn't need a studio because it all came from her MacBook. And despite being a private person, she says that as her career kind of took off, she still needed to use social media in order to get herself out there because no one was doing it for her. Now, there's this one study by Grace Joy. She's a senior UX researcher at TikTok, and this study says that the expansion of social media has helped female digital musicians enhance their presence online and to develop various skills. So that's even with the odds being stacked against her as both a Latin artist and as a woman. The study goes on to say that technologies such as samplers to digitally programmed songs were used exclusively by producers, engineers, and composers. Women are often discouraged from being able to learn these technologies because men dominate the industry. They have and still do, and hopefully not always will, but that's how it is. But now it goes on to say, due to the advancement and wide availability of user-friendly technologies such as social media, they have been able to seek out the resources that meet their skills. So for Kali Uchis, this was GarageBand. It's available on everyone's MacBook for free. That was available to her. And even with that beginner software, she was able to make incredible music that got the attention of people big in the industry already. Now, given all of this, two scholars, Joe Haynes and Lee Marshall, the second one I'll bring him up again later, But they do point out that in studying famous artists and their success stories, there's a tendency to focus on individual cases and success stories rather than general trends, especially if the examples are relatively famous. So to put this in easy words, when using Kali Uchis as an example for someone who rose to success through the use of social media and platforms like SoundCloud, you have to be careful to not generalize this to everyone who uses media, to every musician on the media. The people who made it to the top, which is a very small percentage compared to the hundreds of thousands who are still trying to make it. Interviews in this study revealed that the online music market has become oversaturated as more and more acts release their music online. So basically they're struggling and kind of competing with millions of other musicians that are also online trying to get audience attention, and only so many people can get that. And there's often little that makes these artists stand out from the rest. Whether Kali Uchis' quickly made mixtape on SoundCloud was just found by the right people out of sheer luck who connected to people big in the industry, or whether it was her sheer talent that just shined through and actually stood out for once. Which one of these factors is going to weigh more is really unknown and probably going to remain unknown to us. It's really difficult to know whether it could have been just luck or if it was just talent or a mix of both, which is likely the case. So in connection to this, the study does also note that traditional gatekeepers, so basically record labels, are still really important in the music industry. Being discovered through social media is definitely a possibility, but it doesn't mean that we can still completely get rid of labels because artists do still need them. They also already do have that reputation in being a big music label, being able to get all the contacts for their promotion, getting them onto streaming platforms, on whatever it might be to get the word out there, especially when it comes to a girl like Kali. She didn't really know anyone personally in the music industry.
Started, by myself with no money, with no team.
I didn't know anything about the music industry. I didn't know anybody in the music industry. I was solely looking at labels as a bank. I need money to make this album. I have no money. I need money to live somewhere.
She was able to overcome that through using SoundCloud, using social media, getting her work out there, and becoming found, eventually signing to a label to get the funds to produce her first studio album. Labels are overall still very present in the music industry, so that was Kali's next step. After her self-released EP titled Por Vida in 2015, her next project was her first studio album called Isolation, which she released in 2018 under the label Virgin EMI Records, which was UK-based. All of the songs on Isolation, except one, were written in English. By 2019, her heart was set on releasing her next album in Spanish. She talks extensively about the fact that her label did not want to go through with this.
The label, they were very against it because they're like, you're not going to be able to translate to the Latin market. Growing up bilingual, I'm like, that's going to be inauthentic for me to just keep going in English when I want to be able to do both. So they told me, they're like, we're not going to support you at all.
There were very few artists at the time who had released music first in English and then switched over to Spanish, which also gave a lot of hesitation. But Kali was determined to release this. This was her passion.
It's what I really, really want to do. I'm going to do it.
She is very confident in her vision. She's very confident in who she is as an artist, and she knows exactly what she wants, so she went through with it. So to promote her second album, being her first Spanish album, that she would release in 2020, she signed with Interscope Records and she released the album Sin Miedo. According to Variety, she became one of Interscope's earliest Latin success stories. Sin Miedo hit #1 on the Latin album charts, and it was all definitely helped with her song Telepatía, which you may have heard floating around TikTok. Telepatía marked Kali's first entry on the Billboard 200. It peaked at number 25. Since then, she's followed a pattern of alternating her album releases between Spanish and English. The process behind alternating this way is, she describes it during the writing process as having two different scrapbooks. It gives her the freedom to just write in whichever language comes to mind. Since she did grow up bilingual, they're both her native language, and she just uses both naturally.
My identity as a person and as an artist, it was kind of always like, oh, well, where is she from? She's, have dual citizenship. I'm Colombian and I'm from Virginia.
Grew up very much like Spanglish, bilingual. I went to school in Colombia. I finished my education in the United States. So I had that experience of really living in both countries, and I learned to read and write Spanish before English. And so for me, it's always just been part of my writing process.
And that reflects on her music. There's this one study on the code switching in songs, and it concluded that artists switch languages to demonstrate their bilingual identity and individual characteristics and express their emotions. emotions. In speaking about her bilingual career, she also mentions fellow Colombian artist Shakira. She explains to Vulture that hers was a different situation because Shakira would make the exact same song that was in Spanish and translate it into English. Shakira's work is mainly one of translation. What Cali's doing is very different from that. So while Cali isn't the first Colombian to hit the US and global market, she's definitely one of the first to bring an intentionally bilingual career that was not just a work of translation into the industry. Not only that, but her songs just naturally tend to include both languages, which Shakira would do a bit, but it's present in almost all of Cali's songs. So there is a reason her first UK label was apprehensive to the idea of a bilingual career. There's this fear of risk and a big talk about reducing risk in the culture and media industries in order to maximize profit, because at the end of the day, recording industries do have a commercial mandate, meaning they do have the purpose to make money back. Scholars like Havens and Lotz have analyzed how the media industries heavily rely on formats, which means they're going to follow already successful formats because their outcomes are more predictable. There was no already strongly established bilingual artists in the industry, which is why they were apprehensive. But Cali didn't enter the industry for risk or reducing risk or whatever. She simply was there to share her art. She takes the approach that Havens and Lotz call the art for art's sake, meaning she's really just creating art for the art itself. She's not making it with the focus on making a profit, because if so, she would have just stuck to an English career. And honestly, who knows if she would have made it as big as she is now if she hadn't. At the end of the day, she went with the direction that made sense to her the most, that was most authentic to her, and that definitely showed through, and I think that her fan base can really see that, which is why she's been able to grow so much, in my opinion.
I have a really amazing foundation of people who support me that have been coming to my shows since I first started, and that have stayed along for the journey for so long. And for me, that's always been, the most important thing, besides just making art that is genuine to me and that really just comes from my heart and my soul, is to not think about how things are going to be sold or perceived, and just make things that are honest.
Like, people wanted to add reggaeton drums to Telepatia just to make it sound like what other Latin music already sounded like, but she said absolutely not, I'm keeping it the way it is. It shows the limited view that there is of Latin music. Like, she can release a song in Spanish without it having reggaeton drums, and it still became a huge hit, one of her biggest. She tells Vulture that it wasn't a single, it didn't have a music video, it wasn't being pushed, it did what it needed to do completely on its own, just because it was able to touch people all over the world. She emphasizes that Latin music is such a broad spectrum and not just the genre in itself. But with a hit song like hers, we're seeing that bilingual music can actually be big. Caliuchis is proof that there is space for Spanish music and bilingual identity in the music industry. Now, stardom has a massive structural importance in the music and recording industry. The industry needs stars, needs talent. When we know a star, we love a star. We're willing to drop hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to see them live, to buy their merch. There is really no price to our emotional affinity to stars. She ultimately views music and her artistry as a creative outlet, and she considers it a privilege that she can actually do this for a living and make money off of it. For her, all of that is extra, but she's extremely grateful.
The person who really wins is the person that does whatever they want to do every day and really is happy.
According to Lee Marshall, who I mentioned earlier, he's a senior lecturer in sociology and he's done a lot of work in this field of stardom and music. He writes in one of his journals that popular music stardom present the star as an individualized, self-expressive, creative figure, one who writes their own material, which is assumed to represent the star's own thoughts, experiences, emotions, and this is key, independent of the processes involved in the commercial production of popular music. This ideology is extremely significant for popular musicians who wish to achieve longevity. That strategy of disguising commodification really does work, and even though Cali doesn't use it, her authenticity shows why it is so important for an artist to come off as authentic and self-expressive.
¿Tres cosas que tú sientes que un artista debe tener?
Bueno, yo creo que la más importante cosa, like authenticity.
And as humans, we want to emotionally connect with someone rather than connect with some product being the song that we're buying. Marketing them as the creative and the star of it all is what's going to bring them to stardom in the end. She hits the nail on the head with this one interview on Vice where she was asked about the personas who were created by artist management, and she says, I don't think there's anything wrong with what they do. I think it's easier to get other people to tell you what to do because it can be treated like a corporation, not like art. That's the key. From a money perspective, labels really have a commercial mandate. They have the purpose to make money. And many artists see this as a big bank opportunity. Even Kylie admits, I could be much bigger right now if I wanted what the labels wanted and what people wanted me to be. Making pop and getting my hit single, but I couldn't be bothered. This doesn't mean there's any right or wrong way to become a star. It's just one of the many features of stardom. Because pop has been found to be closely connected to personal and collective identity, we very strongly identify with Kylie's story.
Did you ever wonder?
What she describes is her fans' connections to, yes, her art, but more importantly to her. That's who she credits for her fame. And as Lee Marshall goes on to say in the article, this emotional attachment, this affective affinity, is one of the things that characterizes popular music stardom, and it helps to create an artificial scarcity within the market.
The sun will come out.
This is how we allow stars to get so big, and therefore how labels can put any price on what they want to sell from the artist. That's why we go into Ticketmaster and we're accepting the fact that a floor ticket is $600. People are still going to buy. They are willing to pay because when you have the money, there is no price to the connection between a fan and their favorite artist. There's a lot of wiggle room for how expensive they can get away with making things. The way Kylie's career has been focused on fans who mainly love her for her rather than a certain sound, that is one way we can see the emotional attachment that fans have to their artists, particularly one like her who focuses on creativity and individuality rather than focusing on the process of commercializing her music or overly promoting it in a way that seems artificial and inauthentic to her pretty down-to-earth branding. Even though it's not really branding, it's just her.
I didn't start making music to have like an oversaturated career, and I'm happy with where I'm at. So,
however, the process of becoming a person rather than a persona, it is really difficult, and it comes with its emotional baggage to be so vulnerable.
I love being off the internet right now. It's the best thing ever. So
beyond just the vulnerability of sharing your personal story through lyrics, artistry, and even just social media, there's also the need to be constantly connecting with your audience, and this is something that can be described as emotional or relational labor. A scholar, Nancy Baim, who by the way is a senior principal research manager as she's at Microsoft Research, she cites the work of the groundbreaking Arlie Hochschild, sorry if I said her name wrong, and her work on emotional labor. She's super important in sociology, and Baim, similarly to Marshall, describes this aspect of stardom, this relational labor, as relations that are based on getting and giving money, and they're to be seen as if they were relations free of money. So basically pretending like your relationship with your fans isn't just something to keep up because you need it to make money. In that, Baim adds the importance of the relational aspect of this labor that musicians have to keep up in order to strengthen their fan base's liking of their person and therefore their music and therefore their career. Now, Nancy Baim's contribution of The Intimate Work of Connection, which is the title of her book, it has become ever present as an essential part of being a musician today, especially in the social media age where the barriers between fans and the artists have been broken down like never before in the past 10 to 20 years with the rise of social media.
like what I'm doing with my life.
¿Cómo están? ¿Cómo están? So I just wanted to talk to you guys, hear what you have to say.
Whereas in the past, artists could really only distribute music through the label, and their main interaction with fans was through live shows and meeting them in person. And of course, through sharing their stories through the art itself. Just sharing every daily aspect of your life that is very new to the industry, and it's very much changed what it means to be rising into stardom. But as it comes with the commodification of an artistry like music, there's a need to, quote, maintain a never-ending, always engaging, continuously innovative conversation with their audience, one that's self-promotional enough to remind people that they have something to sell, yet interpersonal enough to make listeners feel connected and eager to spend their money on them. In essence, their personality is a show, it's an act they put on to further their career. And in a broader sense, what does all of this tell us about what it takes to rise to stardom? Well, I think for one, it tells us that there are many, many, many ways to rise to stardom. You can use social media, you cannot. Even the study that I mentioned earlier by Joe Haynes and Lee Marshall, it tells us that a lot of the artists that rose with the rise of social media were already previously established artists, or at least known individuals. It's just very important to strike a balance if you are going to be an artist on social media in order to raise engagement and connect with your fans, which is certainly, yes, important, but also it is important to strike that balance, and that's even something Kylie herself has mentioned that she struggles with and is still trying to find. Social media, though it can be a tool to help new and independent artists rise, it also is, at the end of the day, still just enhancing the already existing backbone of the music industry, where record labels are still as the traditional gatekeepers in order to reach superstardom.
But once you become a sort of established star, they're going to start trusting your vision and they're going to start listening to you more. And that's why Kali has been able to, I believe, go through with her completely bilingual career, because she has her established audience. They can't really doubt that anymore. Just really is all over the place in the best way possible. She's striving to always do something new, always something unpredictable. As an artist, she wants to be authentic as possible with limitless creativity, and she also wants to inspire other Latin artists to push the boundaries of what is set for Latin music.
I want all small artists to know that you don't need to be just in one category, one genre, one language, and you can do whatever you want. Thank you.
She's authentic, true to herself, and clearly a very creative woman with intention behind everything that she does. And despite needing the financial support from a label to be able to produce her music, to distribute it, she was unafraid to turn her back on that. This woman is a symbol in the music industry for embracing self-love, culture, and authenticity over money. But in general, don't let people kind of destroy your passions just because it's not seen as good enough yet or mainstream. Take the time to hone it in, and if you trust and you have a vision, you should go for it, because even if it takes years, you might just become a star. If you trust the universe, people will see the value in your passion and it will pay off like it has for Kali Uchis. Never let go of the parts of yourself for people who can't see the true you. Stay true, stay authentic, and stream orquídeas.